It's preparing the live stream. Okay, so this is 𝗀𝗲𝗃. It is April 14th, I believe. We're going to talk about Pitranomics, which is my 10-part strategy to grow, protect, and transfer wealth. Some bookkeeping I'd like to get started with are for upcoming Pitranomics. I'd like to gauge interest. So today we were supposed to have 𝗀𝗲𝗃 Tingland, but I think she might have had a conflict, so hopefully she'll let me know. But that's okay, we're pretty informal here. One upcoming redo of the budgeting, because we had such technical difficulties, I would like to redo that and make sure we have the templates and some Quicken and QuickBooks examples for people to go through. Any questions that you want to ask, but I'm planning on doing that on the 26th of this month, so not a Thursday, but a Tuesday, just so people can, get into that. Next week on the 21st, I want to do a session in the lifeboat series. Who is in your lifeboat? Are they helping you to row, or are they causing you to sink? And we're going to talk about how that relates to being parents, being friends, being business partners, choosing your mentor. It's just going to be a rather casual discussion about how that mindset affects those relationships. On the 28th, and for the next 4 weeks, we're going to talk about sending your dollars out and having them come back as friends. How to make money with residual and passive income. My guest on the 28th will be Amy Sayer of August REI. She does owner financing loan servicing, which if you're going to get into real estate and you don't want to necessarily buy the property and manage it and lease it out, this is a really good alternative. And I want to share on her end, how important loan servicing is and what it means for someone trying to get into that business. Because as of, I think it's January 1st of this year in Texas, all private loans are required to have servicers and what that means. And then the next week on the 5th, I'm hoping to have a financial planner. It's depending on where in the world he is. And that's more about how it's my financial planner, and it's how you want to use and partner with your financial planner, what sort of things you should ask, what sort of things you should know, and what sort of things you can expect. Especially some financial planners sell their own funds, so that's how they're paid. Some are fee-based to help you manage your funds however it can be, and they're open to almost any kind of investment. Some encourage you to do self-controlled IRAs and Roths, and we'll talk about that. So IRAs and 401ks, sorry, not Roths, and we'll talk about that. So how you can use that type of financial help. And then the other topic will be, like, I'll just call it side hustle. And that might be on the 12th, but I'm not sure. And I will talk about anything you can do in addition to your current job that will help you make additional income that you can use to either invest or get yourself out of debt, whatever. These dates may change because people are moving around. It's coming up on the busy season, but I just want to let you know about some of the upcoming topics. Any questions about those, any interest about those, let me know, just text. Particularly the budgeting segment I thought was really crucial, and I was sad about the breakdown in the technology that I was experiencing. I think I have it straightened up, but budgeting is very important to targeting those monies that you need to go out and send out into the world to bring back as friends. So it's the basis of it. If you can't accumulate, you can't invest. So let me just check real quick to see if 𝗀𝗲𝗃 will be able to make it. And I don't see anything. So Shamir, is there anyone on Facebook? Okay, so it'll be a small group, which is great because it means we can keep it short. What I'm going to talk about, since Miss 𝗀𝗲𝗃 could not come, is did you have a question?
Yes, I'm sorry. I know you said, did we have questions about, you had mentioned with the budget. And it was really, really good. What I liked the most, and I don't know that I have a good handle on it. Do you know how you were giving out rules? Like you said, if you make this amount of money, you know, your house, you should live in a house that's this many times your income, and you should drive a car that's like 50% of your income. I would like to get those and actually, like, you know, be able to have you give them to me so that I can write them down and try to get my life together.
Okay.
But I thought that it was really, you know, I think I work better with numbers. So I was just like, that was awesome, because she has all of these formulas, and it makes it make sense for me. And it helps me too if I write things down. So,
okay. What I'm going to do is we're going to test this screen sharing thing right now.
Okay.
So let's see if I can. Okay, I want to share my screen, and now I want to go to, what do you see?
Your budget.
Okay, so this is, I created this spreadsheet. So if I'm speaking with someone, I can do some quick analysis of budget to show them the impact of three very important rules that my parents gave me. And that was, if you see here, it's that your house should be, and that's your payment, so that's your PITI, at most 2.5 times your income. And then that's what this formula, that's what that looks like. If you put down, right here, see it says 20% down payment. Here's your mortgage rate, some rules of thumb for property taxes, HOA, and your home loan. So you put those in, and then you can figure out what your PITI is. But the calculation, if you make 120,000, which is up here, you see that annual gross W-2. Yep. And these numbers are based on W-2. Then your house should be $300,000 or less. And in addition to that, your total car should be 50% of your gross salary or less. So that shows you this. And then your savings should be at least 10%. So these are guidelines. I won't call them rules. You can still overcome and you can sort of adjust, but what I'm going to say is, if you adhere to these guidelines and you're prudent in the other areas of your life, you should be able to stay below your means. I believe that, and I will stand by that. Now, if you decide to live by these rules and then spend double your income on your credit cards, well, I don't know what to do about that. This doesn't really account for paying down debt or anything like that. That's separate. So Dave Ramsey, who everybody has heard about, I'm not channeling him, I'm not advocating for him, but he does have useful techniques for those that have trouble managing their credit. However, and this is a big however, leveraging your credit is a good way to build wealth if you have self-control. So if you don't, then it's not a good idea to use credit. But if you can do that, then it's an excellent way to build your wealth. So let's go back. Let me go back to that. I moved out of that. Let me go back to that spreadsheet. And what I like about this, so let's say, this is what really gets me. People used to use the number $250,000. You make $250,000, you're rich, right? So let's just put that in there. And this is W-2 income. So, and let's say for Gwen, we're married filing jointly, right? So this is your monthly gross. After taxes, this is your monthly net. Now, your home, if you put 20% down, then this is your payment. That's quite a chunk out of $15,000 net. So I just feel like if you look at these numbers, you can see what's going on with your income before you even start spending. So your home should be no more than $625,000. Now, back in, I think it was 2006, 2007, when I moved into the neighborhood where I am now, there were people buying $1 million homes on $200,000 to $250,000 a year. So do you see how that violates the guidelines as far as I'm concerned? Once you're spending that much money on just your house, unless you have a subsequent strategy for why you're doing that. And here's a valid one. I'm going to buy this house. I'm going to spend a lot of money. I'm going to live in it and renovate it so I can sell it in 2 years and make money. Or I'm going to live in it and then house hack so I have other people helping me make the mortgage. That's a legitimate strategy. But if you're just overspending because you want this big, beautiful house for $1 million, now in Texas, that's a big, beautiful house, then you have to cut it in other areas. Maybe you have a very basic car that costs a whole lot less, or you might be eating into savings. Well, here's the thing about eating into savings. This is not, ooh, you make 10% of your savings and you're great. This is a minimum. Ideally, you should be, especially when you're young and before the expenses really start, you should be saving 30 to 40% of your salary. Because once kids and all that come, you know, they eat, at least mine did, almost every square inch of your money. So when you're unencumbered, let's make this a single person or unmarried, which is, right? So their taxes change a little bit, right? Let's just make sure we are making wise decisions. And I would share this spreadsheet, 𝗲𝗿𝗍, except for it's got all this ugly stuff over here backing it up, which is hard to explain. So if you want to just think of the 3 guidelines are, your home or homes, however you want to do it, should be less than 2.5 times your annual salary. And leave it at that. If you are living above that, you will have to make other accommodations. Your car should be 50%. This is in value, not in payment, of your annual salary. So if you're making $250,000 a year and you're driving some car that costs $200,000 a year, you're outside the guidelines. If you do that, make accommodations elsewhere, and you should be saving at least 10% of your salary. I would like to suggest if you're single and making $250,000 a year, let's save more. Let's get up in the 50%, unless I truly don't understand what people are spending their money on. So does that make sense, 𝗲𝗿𝗍?
It does. And I wrote that down. And I just want to confirm, when we're talking about the house payment, 2.5% of your income, that's your gross income, right?
Yeah, the house value, so the price you pay should be 2.5%, sorry, 2.5 times your annual salary. Now, what I want you to look at, let me go back to sharing that screen. Share my screen, go back to that spreadsheet. I want you to look at the interest rate I have here, the taxes, the HOA, and the down payment. If you make less, then this budget is going to change. Right here, once you pay all this, you're paying, what is that, 6, 8, almost 9,000 right there on auto and savings out of your budget. All your other living, your lifestyle spending, groceries, clothing, all that is what's coming out of the rest.
Right.
So yeah, 2.5 times. And I think even now, it's a good thing to consider. So if you want, let's say if you make 250, let's make that 100. Oh, let's make that 150,000. Is that right? If you make $150,000 a year and you want to live in something more expensive than a $375,000 home, if that's your W-2 income, then you need a side hustle. And you need a business.
Makes sense.
Does that make sense? Were you going to ask something?
It does. Yes, I appreciate you going over those. I'm going to call them rules for me. I know you don't call them rules, but I appreciate you going over.
Oh, sure. Oh, sure. I mean, I think this is really important for people to have basic guidelines so they can make in the moment decisions about how they spend their money. No one's going to look at a purchase and say, wait a minute, I got to go back and check my budget and make sure. What people tend to do is like, yep, okay, that works. I can do that, you know, and then they'll shuffle a little bit later. So one of the examples I want to share, I had years ago, this is probably about 12 years ago now, I was doing financial mentoring. And I had wanted to target women of color. That was why I started doing it. And of the clients I had, I did not have one single woman of color for a client. And I thought, wow, okay, not meeting my goals there. One of the clients that I had, I was working with her and her husband. I'm going to stop sharing so I can see. And he was kind of at his wit's end. He was making $300,000 a year. She was a stay-at-home mom, and they were struggling financially due to her spending. And so when she first suggested that they come to me, he wasn't really that interested in speaking to another woman about money. He was like, you know, what is she gonna, I mean, he said it, he was quite blunt about it. And then when he heard what I was saying, he was like, yeah, you ought to listen to her. Because she talked about, well, I bought this new sofa and it was like $6,000, it was either $6,000 to $8,000 for a new sofa. And I told her, I said, I have never spent that much money on a piece of furniture, like one single piece of furniture. And we are not struggling. So I need you to tell me why you went out and spent that kind of money on a piece of furniture with 3 kids when you know your husband is struggling in his mind. Why would you do that to your marriage? And that was when I started telling people, if you don't protect your partnership, that's going to cost you money. If you don't protect your marriage, if you don't come together on the finances in your marriage, your partnership, whatever your union you're having where you're sharing finances, that will mess you up right there. That's going to mess you up. And I said, it is not fair for you to make that kind of decision without consulting him. Now, I'm not saying you're asking for permission to make the purchase. I'm saying you two are partners and you should do this together. He should at least feel heard. Now, that is what I believe. Let's go back to what my practice has been, because I'm all about transparency here. Have I actually done that every single time on a big purchase? What are you saying there, David?
No.
No, I have not. David knows my husband, so he'll keep me honest. I have done that. It has caused some amazing stress when I do that. When I'm like, oh, I'm gonna do that. So while I believe that each spouse or each partner has an equal say, if you're causing your partner all kinds of stress, you're bringing negative pressure to your union. And if your marriage implodes, that's going to cost you some money. Just that right there. Because then you got to split stuff up and then you got to get lawyers involved. And very few marriages are amicable. So when the lawyers get involved in a non-amicable relationship, you're paying a heck of a legal fee. That's all I'm saying. And my opinion is, if you can handle a divorce amicably, maybe you shouldn't be getting divorced. Maybe you need to work that out. Maybe you need to see come to some kind of terms. You know, maybe it's, I'm gonna live in this part of the house for a while and you live over there, but we're still aligned in these goals that brought us together. I'm not gonna speak on what people should do in their marriage to stay together. All I'm gonna say is, you married that person. Think about why you're leaving compared to why you married them. Because you're not going to find, in my opinion, my husband is great. He is the perfect man for him. He still gets on my nerves sometimes. I know I get on his. It's a true marriage. But there is nobody out there better. Not a single. I've looked at these men. I was 32 years old when I got married. I was like, no, I ain't never get married. No. And I met him. I was like, maybe I might consider that. He's a good guy. And I've heard women put a list of things they want in a husband. He's got to do this. He's got to make this. He's got to have this. He got to look like this and blah, blah, blah. And the list starts getting longer and then they need toes and fingers. And I did say to a woman, and that resulted in an argument. I said, well, what are you bringing to the table to deserve this amazing man? Because I'm not seeing it. That man has options. You know, so Think about your market value when you're looking for a partner. What are you bringing to the table to make that person say, yes, I want to work with you? Now, to be fair, when I chose my husband, I had a nice list of my attributes, right? I knew what I was bringing to the table. I was very clear on my market value. I was not the prettiest woman in the world by far. I was not the smartest woman in the world, but I was pretty close. That was my opinion. I had good income potential. I had good organizational skills. I was good with money. You know, I was going to be a good mom. I'd come from a good home. All of these things that I thought would be important to a spouse. I was like, yeah, I ain't totally crazy. I'm a little crazy, maybe that crazy, but I'm not this crazy. So I was like, all of this came to bear. And then when I was considering marrying my husband, I can't hear you. You're muted. I don't know what you're saying. I just see you making noises with your face.
You ain't crazy?
Yeah, still can't hear you. Anyway, so I had a pros and cons list of should I marry him or should I not marry him? I was very intentional about my husband's choice. And then it wasn't until later, years into the marriage, I realized my husband was just as intentional, had his own pros and cons list. And that was kind of a laugh. But when we shared that with our kids, they're like, ew, that's not romantic. It should be about love. I was like, love doesn't make a marriage last 30, 40, 50 years. I mean, love doesn't make me want to keep being your parent all the time. I mean, come on now. There are days when I'm thinking, I could have not had you, but I still love them. Of course I love my kids. And this is just Julie talk. This may not be how other people will say, well, I've never not loved my kids and I treasure every day with them and every day is such a gift. Whatever, that ain't me. That might be somebody else, but it's not me. There have been days where I'm like, aren't you grown yet? And they're 6. So all I want to say is keep your family together, provide a good foundation for your children so they can grow out and be sane, productive members of society. If you divorce one spouse over what I'm going to call trivial reasons, and you think you're going to go out and find a better one, maybe you will. Chances are you won't, though. So be pragmatic about it. And I think that's a good financial basis for that mindset. Think about it. What are you bringing to the table? What can you two grow together? My husband and I didn't have a whole lot when we came together. We grew it. Look for somebody you can grow with. Look for somebody that's not going to mess you up when the money starts coming in and they're like, I'm going to spend this. Let me bring you back to that couple I was talking about. That was his problem with his wife. It wasn't so much that she bought a couch that cost $6,000 to $8,000. It's like he never knew when the hammer was going to fall on the checking account because of what she was spending. And I remember she bought, no, this was another wife and another husband in my neighborhood. This woman bought $2,000 worth of garland. Do y'all know what that is? Garland. It's that crap you put on your stairs to decorate at Christmas. And I was like, what? I said, I can find that stuff at garage sales all the time. And I go garage sale shopping, by the way. I was like, why would you spend that much? He was, well, I just like the way it looks and I like for it to feel Christmassy. And we had to break it down. There was an emotional connection for why she wanted that garland. They were going through a tough time in the marriage. She remembered feeling happy in her childhood when the house was all well decorated and all that, and it made her feel happy. Now, does that sound like an insignificant reason to buy garland? Maybe, but here's the truth of the matter is, when you are not emotionally healthy, you make unsound decisions. So instead of focusing on the $2,000 worth of garland, I was like, y'all need some marriage counseling, and I don't do that. So go find somebody. You got some issues to address. That was what the problem was. It wasn't that the $2,000 for the garland. It was that she was not making the best decisions for her family because she was not emotionally and mentally in a good place. So taking care of your health, both mental and physical, is a good, sound financial decision. Now, am I the perfect example of that? No, girl, I'm a little overweight. I got some high blood pressure issues. And I like chocolate and things with high saturated fats like fried chicken. Yes, I am not perfect. Hold on. But I work toward my strategies. I'm constantly working toward improving. When I get to being perfect, I'll probably be dead. So I'm constantly a work in progress. I don't know how I got on that task. I was talking about being a financial coach. Anyway, so the guidelines are meant to be just that, guidelines. They are not hard and fast. The thing about, if we go back to the spreadsheet, and I'll go back in a minute, if you are not a W-2 employee though, you've got different choices in how you spend your money. So that's why it becomes a different approach when you are not W-2. For me and Awilda and Shamir, we're realtors. Our cars are very much a part of our expenses. So we might be able to go up a little bit in value on cars because it is an essential business expense. Plus, it decreases the income upon which you have to pay taxes. And then when you reduce your income and taxes, well, the tax rates for when you're self-employed, you're paying the double Social Security tax. So that makes your taxes even higher as a business person. So having those expenses has another impact on proper business finance management, if that makes sense. Any questions? Because that was a lot. I was just talking. Any questions?
Two things real quick, if I can jump in, okay?
Yep.
One, the cost of divorce is devastating, and I have lived that. So if anybody wants more information on that one, I can give you a whole bucket load. And two,
have you found somebody better? Did you find somebody better? Is Julie right?
No, I'm still winging it by myself. I'm good. You know.
1 point for Julie, it sounds like.
Yeah, right. You know.
1 point for Julie, yeah.
And the cost is unfathomable. I just can't even tell you how much it's cost. Not, you know, just not money, but emotionally, mentally, physically, the stress of it, all of it, you know. And you know, I don't know if you guys are married or not, and that's none of my business, but just saying, you know, you have to make sure that you are thinking with your head as well as your heart, especially when it comes.
This head.
Yeah, that was given since my audience. Anyway, and then the second part that I wanted to comment on real quick, Julie, is that in terms of the budget, that's where the budget comes into play. And that's where the bookkeeping comes into play, especially if all of you are independent realtors. You know, you have to make sure that you take care of your books and that you have a good bookkeeper, because the bookkeeper is what is going to keep you from overspending knowing where you're spending. And by analyzing that and being honest with yourself, then you can stay true to the budget.
Yes, budgeting. So when you are a self-employed person or a sole proprietorship or something like that, your books are what help you adopt the best tax strategies. They help you get good business funding. If you're just a W-2 income, you know, let's say you go rent a house and they're like, well, give me your past 3 months pay stub. And you're like, here you go. Basically, I believe for the most part, unless you're strategic about it, you are getting your, I better not say that here on recorded. I'm not a big fan of always being W-2 employees without adding a side hustle. I'll say something else off the record. But anyway, there's not a lot of flexibility for you as a W-2 employee in managing those expenses. But if you're self-employed, let's say you want to go get a car loan. Well, you don't have pay stubs. So you better have income statements. You better have a balance sheet that makes sense so that somebody can look at it and go, okay, yeah, we'll loan you some money, because you need to be able to borrow money to grow. And if you want to be able to adopt these wonderful tax mediation strategies that I have found, then you have to keep very careful records and you have to be compliant. and a bookkeeper will help you do it. Best, a bookkeeper that can get inside your mind and do it the way you need. So the books are both a tax mediation strategy and an assessment of how your business is run. So you know if you're doing well, and you need to be able to read cash flow statements and predict future cash flows. As realtors, most traditional realtors, they only get paid when they close a transaction. But that's not the same transaction every week. It's regular. You have money that kind of looks like this, but your expenses don't look like this. They don't ride with the income. Sometimes your expenses just stay kind of flat or maybe even go up. So you have to manage your anticipated cash flows accordingly. And if you think you're going to have a shortfall, you got to get a side hustle. You got to do something else. Go ahead.
Do you have, are you having your income statement and balance sheet audited annually? You personally, just curious.
So sort of, my CPA makes sure I am defensible each year.
Okay.
And by, I don't know if y'all all know what I mean, but so I have gotten to the point where I will disagree with the position my CPA takes. Because it's my business, right? That's the thing. I use my professionals to give me advice, but I have become knowledgeable enough to say, this is the position I want to take on that. So this is how I want my taxes filed. And my CPA will agree as long as it's defensible. If I come up before an audit, they're not thinking, oh, you're guilty of tax evasion. They're like, no, that's just unsound. You got to recalculate and then pay the taxes later and whatever penalties. I'm fine with that. One of the areas that my CPA and I've been talking about is I started investing in crypto, these crypto strategies, and I do not want to treat them like stock. That is not I think in my opinion, relevant tax perspective for the crypto. So I am searching on my own for other CPAs and people to give me a basis that I find defensible. So instead of likening some of these crypto strategies to stocks, I'm likening them to Bitcoin mining, which has its own treatment. And I said, that is an appropriate use of this particular platform. That is what I will do. So, and I actually got into crypto for the first time in July. Here's another thing about me. I am always looking for additional sources of income. Always, always. Sometimes I suggest things to people and they say, well, I don't have the bandwidth for that. And I got to tell you, sometimes I'm confused. You don't have the bandwidth for additional money? What else you doing? You know, and a lot of times the people who tell me that, they're like, oh, I wish I had more money. Well, here you go. Here's an opportunity. I'm not guaranteeing that anything else I'm doing will work for you. You got to find what works for you. There are things I won't do, but it's not because I don't have the bandwidth. It's just that I don't think I have what it takes to be successful in that arena. But I have the bandwidth for doing things that are congruent with what I'm already doing. Of course, that'll make extra money. You damn skippy. So back to being audited, I have a very reputable CPA looking at my taxes, looking at my financial documents, which are my balance sheet, my cash flow statement, and my income statement. We look at that probably 3-4 times a year. And by looking at it, I'm presenting those documents to lenders, so I need to have them look reasonable. He has a background in real estate himself. He comes from a family of real estate investors, so he can help me look good to lenders in the real estate community. And I think that's awesome. The other thing, let's talk about tax returns for a minute if you're an independent business owner. A lot of people think I just got to do my tax returns and check it off. I'm excited about it. I'm like, how low can I make this income look? I want to look broke. I want to look like I ain't got no money. No one will ever know if I actually have any. Maybe I'm just a flash in the pan broke person just pretending to have some money. Maybe I am. Who knows? Anyway, it's always good to be able to maximize your goals. And one of my goals is to accumulate money. And that means I'm not giving it to somebody like Uncle Sam who may or may not deserve the money. When I hear people say about billionaires, oh, they're not paying their rightful share, blah, 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 blah. I'm thinking, let me find out what they're doing. Let me read. That's what I'm doing. So I have a different approach about it. And I'm fine with having that different approach, because when you think about it, who has the right to tell me or anyone else what to do with the money I bust my butt to make? Yes, I owe some money for schools and such, which I pay through property taxes. Can't get around that until I get to be, what, 65 or 70, whatever age it is that I can have my property taxes reduced. I pay sales tax on everything that I buy that's new or services that I use. I pay taxes on my automobiles. I pay a lot of taxes. To pay this graduated higher federal tax because somebody has decided, well, you can give a bigger share of yours because, you know, you make money or whatever. Whatever. That's why I went into business. Let's find some ways to help alleviate that problem. I'm not trying to enter into a political or socially philosophical view about it, but I just think it's perfectly acceptable to optimize your tax burden legally. I don't think
it's legal. I feel like it's,
yeah,
you know, free for all. It's legal.
If it's legal and my very experienced CPA says, yep, that's defensible, then yeah, I'm going for it. Man, we have not, I guess I really wish I had known. Yeah, I don't know what happened to Shalana. So one of the things I think that, let's see, 𝗲𝗿, why did you go into real estate? Let me ask you that, because I don't know that about you. And I know you're going to leave soon, so I'd like to hear that.
Hi. Okay. I am going to start driving in about 10 minutes. So I'm going to stay on because I'm really enjoying the content. And then it's going to take me about 20, 25 minutes, and then I'll pop back on if we're still going on the camera. But the reason that I got into real estate, I had thought about it and kind of talked myself out of it years and years ago. And so I would tell myself, oh, when my kids get older, you know, they get into school, then I'm going to do it. And then I got married, and then I had another baby. And so I never got around to it. And this just hit me. So this past December, I had taken like 2 weeks off of work. And I was like, oh, I'm going to do all this stuff around the house. You know, I'm going to clean, I'm going to declutter, I'm going to decorate. And it was around Christmas. And I was like, I'm going to do all of these things. And then the voice in my head said, well, why do you keep kind of talking yourself out of real estate? So I started inquiring about real estate. And so I started looking at schools and like what the requirements were. Well, when I started looking into it, I found out that what the requirements as far as taking the exam and some of the context, you know, with the fiduciary duties and ethics and things like that, I came to find out that it was very similar to the requirements for my 9-to-5 job. So I work in commercial lines insurance. And so I have like 48 licenses and I'm licensed in like 48 states. And so I said to myself, I keep taking all of these tests and all of this continuing education for my job, but yet I keep talking myself out of doing something for myself. So the 2 weeks that I had off, I decided that I wasn't doing any of that stuff. I wasn't cooking, I wasn't cleaning, I wasn't doing anything for anybody else. I was going to go and get my real estate license. So I signed up and I got about half of my classes done. I went to Champions and I did it online, but there was an instructor. So I signed up for as many classes as I could within that 2-week period. when I was off of work. And then when I went back to work, I started taking classes in the evenings and on the weekends until I was done. And then I went ahead and took my test because I just kind of had a conversation with myself about myself. And I'm just like, this makes no sense. You keep doing this for your job, but you keep talking yourself out of it for yourself. So that is how I got started.
You're muted, Julie.
I was a housewife for 20 years. And then I turned 50. And probably to outward appearances, it looked like I lost my mind. I didn't lose my mind. I just decided I was worth having again. And I said, you know what? I'm going to have work of my own. I'm going to do great things. And off I go. And so I decided to go into real estate investing. And the reason I became a realtor is because I got screwed by an investor. And I was like, well, I'm not going to let that happen again. I said, how hard can it be to be a realtor? Well, pretty darn hard to be a good one. So that's what I found out. It's not easy to be a good realtor. It's real simple to be a bad one, though. So that just takes no effort whatsoever. I mean, even that test, they're like, oh, I passed my test. I was like, monkeys can pass that test. So I'm just not impressed. I am impressed if you're able to serve your clients, meet their needs, have integrity, I wouldn't think that's hard, but it does seem to be difficult. There aren't that many realtors that I know personally that I would be like, yeah, I want you to list my house for me. Not many, but I do know, I'm lucky to know about 6 of them that I'd be like, yeah, just handle that for me. So, but I did not like being screwed by that realtor. I still see him occasionally. I don't think kind thoughts. So, work with me. I'm trying not to send that negative energy out there, but every time I see him, I'm like, and then I keep going. Hey, Shalana, good to see you.
Oh my gosh, I had this meeting down for 7. I am so sorry. That's why I asked you, could we move it back to 6:30? Because I had it on my calendar for 7. I'm so sorry, y'all. I didn't mean to be tardy. Please forgive me.
Oh, that's okay. I'm just gonna
so sorry.
Come on at the. Yeah, well, you said today, whatever. We'll do it again. We'll schedule you again. But we've had to talk about budget. We've talked about budget. I want to show you this real quick. Let me share this with Shalina because I don't think you were on when we were doing the budget conversation last week, but I was having technical difficulties. So my mom had these guidelines about spending. Your home should be 2.5 times or less your annual salary. So at 150, that's a 375 home, 375,000. Your cars should be less than 50% of your annual income. So that's 75, and you should save at least 10%. And so let's put this, I was saying earlier that people think that $250,000 is a lot of money. And let's say you're married filing jointly, $250,000 a year, you should be in a house that's $625,000 or less. Your automobiles should all total be less than $125,000, and you should be saving $2,000 a month, a little more, every month. So, and married filing jointly gets a little bit better of a net than married filing singly because of the, the different, deductions for married people. Where are we again? So let's see. And I had tried to do that budget conversation last week, and I was gonna try and do it next week, but 𝗲𝗿 was on, and she had actually wanted to know, can we get some help on budgeting? So that is something I am willing to do for individuals on an hourly basis, paid. So if you're interested in my expertise in helping you have a budget and to help you, I'm actually also really good at getting people set up on their QuickBooks, and I haven't been doing it that long. And I'm gonna pat myself on the back here and tell you that my CPA says I am awesome in QuickBooks. And 3 years ago, I didn't know anything about QuickBooks. 2019, yep. 3 years ago, I didn't know anything. I understood financial statements. That's different than being able to do all the work underneath to get to good documents. So he told me this year, he's like, your books are beautiful. You're so very careful. And another reason to have good books, if you're having an entity, and I know Shamir, we've talked about this, if you have an entity that's providing liability shielding, you have to make sure you don't do what's called piercing the corporate veil, which basically removes your liability protection. So you got to stay on that. And we're going to have a talk about that in Pitranomics in the upcoming weeks, because I think everybody thinks all I got to do is get an LLC and I'm done. Well, no, you got to stay in compliance with that LLC. And I have many of them. It's a job of work.
And I have had one suspended because I did not pay attention to that. And it costs you some money to get that thing renewed. So that is absolutely, you are 100% on point with that.
And I have one LLC. So when I was with my business partners, I'm never going to speak well of them. That's just not going to happen. But I'm going to try not to be vindictive, because the lessons I learned from that experience, I'm hoping to share with people. But in one of the cases, they were handling all the paperwork for the LLC, and they failed to file the taxes or the tax return. And they did that a couple years in a row. And then throughout the settling process, I took over the LLC and now have this major tax penalty because those taxes weren't paid. And I'm fighting it, because why would I just, whatever, you know. It's not my fault. I took it over. They never gave me the information I needed to file. I had to do an amended return when I finally got it. It was late. They're good now, but you know, the IRS is like, well, you have no reason to be late. Well, anyway, can't go back to them. I was actually in a lawsuit with people that took my money and did not prevail in the lawsuit. I do not believe in the legal system either. Now, I don't know if that's contentious to say, but I don't know what I could have done to prove I was taken, except, I mean, I just don't know. It was egregious what was done to me, what I allowed. And this is what I learned. I'm accepting the responsibility. I allowed this to be done to me by taking my eye off the transactions and letting somebody else handle my money. This is why I'm a bit of a control freak, because I've been through let somebody else handle it because they say they could. Now I'm like, nah, son, if it's my money, I got something to say. And if you don't want to listen to me talk, then you don't need to be near my money. I actually wrote down earlier, where'd I put that? I'm going to hashtag this. I'm going to call it broke MF mentality, because I'm not going to say the MF while it's recorded on Facebook, but y'all know me, so you know what the MF means. I am no longer aligning myself with the broke MF mentality people, and I'm getting much better at sniffing it out. And that's what I had done.
I have a question for you. Can you go, when you talk about people with that mentality, you said you've gotten much better with sniffing them out. What are some of your strategies, tools, and tactics that you use to identify someone who fits in that bucket?
So I love that you asked me that. This is one of the things I do. I talk to them like I really want to get to know them. And you know, I don't like most people. So, you know, that's always like, okay, let me pretend like I want to know what's going on in their life. Because how they handle their lives, what they're doing in their lives, the choices they make, their value system will give them away as broke MF mentality people. That will give them away. And I'll give you a case in point. I can give you probably 5, but I'll give you one right now. I was thinking about hiring this assistant, and I met him. He seemed awesome. He was a Spanish speaker. I've been looking for a Spanish speaker for like 2 years. He was actually a translator. When I was around him, I felt energized. And I was like, okay, this is the basis for maybe building something. Maybe he's going to be something for me. I flew his ass out here from Louisiana. He was here because of a hurricane back in New Orleans. So I flew him out here so I could, I said, I need your undivided attention, because before I let you in, and we're going to talk about a lot of stuff. We talked about his childhood. We talked about his divorce. We talked about how he's raising his son. We talked about all of that. And the final conversation we had that made me think broke MF mentality off the list, we were talking about college. And I had made a comment like, hey, you know, enjoy your son while he's young, because before you know it, he'll be off in college. And then he went off on some rant like, my son's not going to college. My son's too smart to go to college. blah, blah, blah. College is nothing. Meanwhile, he has a college degree. He's like, that's a waste of time. You could be doing this and this. He goes, let me just ask you this. You have a nuclear engineering degree. Are you using that? Is that helping you make your money? And I was like, click. I was just done. I just left the conversation. Never talked to him again. Because here's my thought. Education is important. Experience that cause you to learn are important. Networking and meeting the right people so you can grow out of your broke MF mentality environment, that's important. And if you're going to represent me, you better also have that mentality. Now, here's my thing. He's living in whatever ward it is that's filled with corruption in New Orleans. You know, those people reelect those corrupt officials all the time. It's horrible. And I was asking him, how come you haven't left? Why are you still there? And he was like, well, my ex-wife and my son are still there, and so I have to stay. I was like, So if they were living in a swamp, you'd still stay there with them? You wouldn't maybe try to get the son out of there? I mean, I don't know. I've never gone through a divorce. But wouldn't you, if we were going through a divorce and my ex was mired in something and I saw a way to financial wealth, I'm taking the MF with me because they have my child. That is why. Now, when they're 18, I'll drop him, but I am not going to let my child live in squalor, and I am not going to stay there because my partner spouse. I didn't agree with his choices. I didn't agree with his mentality about college, and I also didn't agree with his mentality that those are the rich will always have it and poor will never get by. I was like, well, if that's your belief, then you don't need to be working with me because I'm gonna be expecting you to get some money to grow. So that's
just to add on to that real quick though, is when people make certain statements that tells you what their mentality is.
Yep.
When someone speaks
flash, I got the fan on.
I'm sorry. When
hot flash, so gotta turn the fan on.
From an abundance mentality versus the man won't let me do that. I can never do that. That's not possible for me. You know, those type of words tell you what kind of person they are.
And some of them don't even say it's not possible for me. They say it's not possible. And I'm like, that's broken.
The people you want to surround yourself around are the ones that say, how can I make that happen?
Exactly.
That's
or
never
I am going to make that happen. I haven't figured out how, but I'm going to make that happen.
You know, I mean, that's one of the attractions I have to Julie, is Julie and I sit down and we chop it up. And the questions that I ask her all the time is, what's the play? What's the strategy? How do we make it work? You know, those kind of questions.
Contingency plan, right?
Yeah. What's the contingency plan? Am I prepared for that? Do I even know what that is? Versus, man, the man won't let me. Perfect example, okay? I met Julie through NSBE. I don't know if you know what NSBE is. National
Society of Black Engineers.
Black Engineers, right?
Back in the 90s.
Right. And then I moved down to Florida and I live in Denver, okay? And when I got to Florida and I met up with the alumni NSBE people from Florida, and I'm in conversations with them and they say, well, you know, I'm a senior engineer at some consulting firm and they're a senior engineer at another consulting firm. And the first thing they say to me is, well, you know, I don't think I'm gonna be able to go up any higher. And I'm like, what? I'm like, whoa, hold up. Yeah, why not? Well, you know, the man ain't gonna let me do that. And I'm like, okay. I was done with that NSBE chapter real quick. That alumni, I'm like, whoa. You can't tell me what somebody else is gonna allow you to do.
Any instances of victim mentality?
Bingo.
That's broke MF mentality right there. I can't do this because somebody's keeping me from it. David and I have spent many nights chatting about stuff like that. And Shalane, by the way, you met Marco. Remember him, that Spanish speaker that I brought to one of the trainings?
What's his name?
Marco.
Oh yeah, when we were meeting up, he was there.
Back when you and I were first getting to know each other. Yeah, that's the one I dropped. I was like, ooh. And I still have his contact in my phone. Let me see because I write notes about people. When I write you off, I want to always remember why. Okay, I wrote notes. Insurmountable philosophical differences. For me, details matter greatly. I'm gonna show this to you so I figure out, okay, hold on, why is this? Come on. He has a broke man's mentality and an inflated sense of unproven value. When you get notes like this next to your contact, I'm done with you.
Can I see my contact? Can I see my contact?
I'm not done with you, Shalana. I'm not done with you.
I was going to ask the same thing.
Let me see if I've written any notes.
Right,
about
Shamir and I need to know.
Hold on, let me see.
On second thought, I don't want to know. Just keep moving on. I don't want to know.
Let me see if I wrote something. Nope, you don't have any notes yet.
Not yet.
Yes, I know, right? With that yet part, but yes.
So yeah, I want to remember, because sometimes, I don't know if this has happened to you, but I'll see somebody and I'll be like, I know I don't like you. I just don't recall why. Well, this helps me right here. I'll be like, wait a minute. Because the funny thing, this happened to me about 2 weeks ago. I was talking to some guy and I was like, da, 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 da. And he was like, let's exchange phone numbers. And we did. I sent him a text. I was like, oh, we've texted before. Okay, let me go back to the contact. And I was like, ooh, we can't hang. So, because I had already written that I didn't like that person. On to the next. Now, can people get back into my good graces? Sure. Just like I hope I can get back into somebody's good graces if I do something wrong. But you got to bring something else than what I saw before. And that broke MF mentality, and if this weren't being recorded, I just say it, that to me is insurmountable, because I don't believe in limitations. Racism is not the worst thing that's ever happened to me. So I'm certainly not going to let that stop me from what I want to do.
Let me add on something to that, though. You know, and the way you know someone has that mentality is when they're not willing to bring something to the table.
Don't understand the theory of reciprocity.
Right. Okay.
Where's the quid pro quo?
Right. You know, if I'm asking anything of any of you, then you need to be saying, well, okay, well, what is David bringing to the table? And if David doesn't state in the beginning he's not bringing anything to the table, then David needs to bring something to the table. Whether it be a bill, whether it be information, knowledge, perspective, something. But if they're not bringing anything to
yeah.
Be quiet, Julie, let me finish. If they're not bringing something to the table and they're expecting the world without bringing anything to the table, then they're looking for a whole lot for nothing. You know, and the problem with that is that in game, they're going to be a dream soaker versus a dream stoker. I want people who are going to bring air and life to my dreams, not shower down on them. If you're not going to bring me something positive, I almost said it, shut up.
the MF up.
Okay? At that point in time, hey, if I want that, I got family that'll do that for free all day long, okay? I got friends that'll do that all day long for free, twice on Sunday. I want somebody who's going to say, Dave, how can you make that work? What do you have to do to make that work? Are you willing to work for it? Are you willing to put in for it? Because nothing's free. My friendship to you is free, but it's got to bring something back to you. Otherwise, I'm just pouring out. I got kids. I do that all day. I'm good. I don't need to give you my last $20, $30 in my pocket. I got girls, my daughters that need that. I need to know, what are you bringing to the table for me? And if you're not willing to bring something to the table for me, why am I wasting my time with you?
You know, I'm gonna say another sign of the broke MF mentality is everything is always somebody else's fault. That's a play on the victim mentality, but like they don't accept any responsibility for where they are in life. Some things happen, I get it, but how are you gonna do that? How are you gonna handle it? How are you gonna get around whatever is going on with your life? So broke MF mentality. I do not think I have limited poverty broke MF mentality. I believe in potential. I believe in abundance. I believe I can get what I want and work with somebody else and they can get what they want. And we're both happy because we've come together. If I'm getting what I want and the person working with me ain't getting nothing, well, that's not equity. And vice versa. Vice versa for doggone sure, because I'll be like, I ain't getting what I want, I'm out. I try to be reasonably available to communicate with other people. I do try to take feedback. Sometimes I'm good at it, sometimes I'm not. But you know, that's an important part of understanding. People who get defensive about their, I won't call them weaknesses, areas where they could improve, that's also broke MF mentality. Because it's painful listening to where you need to improve, but it's helping you to improve. So get on board. Shalana, does that help a little bit?
No, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah. And like, it's so funny that Shalana met. I mean, I was like hoping that relationship would work out and he would be great with me. And hanging around him was fun. Oh, he would make sure I ate. He's like, have you eaten today? You know, you need to use your essential oils. You need to stay centered. You need to, you know, do this. And I was like, okay. And he was really good at translating. This is what I loved. I could say something to a Spanish speaking person and it would almost feel like I'm talking to that person. I loved that capability. But you know what? If I had just met him, I could have done that by telephone. He doesn't need to be an integral part of my business. He doesn't need to have all the steps for free. You know, he wasn't willing to do what it takes. So I haven't talked to him since whenever that was. Hope he's doing well. Hope his son's doing well. But couldn't work for me. And there've been a few other people. I had a VA. I think I told you this, and Shamir met her from the Philippines. I'm going to check you out if you're going to be an important part of my business. I see Shamir's like trying to, no, I'm going to check you out. And I talked to her, I was like, I appreciate the loyalty. That girl has shown me loyalty. She's been with me for, I want to say 2 years. I can't remember how long. It's been a long time. And that is worth something right there. That is worth something to me. I want to get to know you. I want to make sure that you can fit with me. And loyalty is important. I have learned from somebody else. Shamir met this person who's been in my life like 6 years. I've supported his businesses in all kinds of ways. And then it turns out when it comes to ACN, I presented that opportunity to him. And then he joined under somebody else. That is called a lack of loyalty.
Well, you know what I've learned? Some people have a expiration date on the season that they'll be with you in. And I've been what I consider loyal to a fault, where I've allowed people to have an opportunity to have access to me only to disappoint me. And one thing my husband always said was, you're giving them too much credit. You didn't allow them to do anything outside of your control. So if you control the relationship, you control the situation, you control the conversations by controlling your emotions. Do not allow someone to have that emotional power over you to say, okay, here's how we're going to do it. I'm going to mistreat you this way. So I've had a lot of people, from coaching clients to people who I thought were friends, who it turns out they were only there for a specific season. I had one, I thought we were really good friends. We traveled. And then as soon as I switched brokerages to another broker, it was like I didn't exist anymore. And that was hurtful. And then I had to go back and I had to say, you know, it's a season. The purpose and time for our relationship has ended. And I cannot hold on to something that is no longer there. You just got to let it go. And I let it go and I move on. I say, be well, be peaceful. And, you know, when we had a mutual friend who had a death in the family, she reached out and I didn't, you know, block her, cuss her out. I just said, you know what? I don't have the details. You want the details? You got to go directly to the source, because I'm not doing this, you know, back and forth relationship. So I realized that people have a season. Some are here for a long haul and some are here just for the moment. And when they go on to their own journey, let's let them go. Peace, love, bye.
I am learning to get better at that. I know there's a certain point when there are years invested with someone, I don't want to just throw the relationship away. I want to give it a good chance to recover, get back on track. I try to communicate with people. I try to share what I'm thinking, you know, blah, blah, blah. Time in is very important to me. But like I said, that guy that joined ACN and not under me, and I saw him, we went to the national event in Oklahoma City, and that's where I saw him. He didn't even let me know he had joined. Be like, hey, Julie, I joined. You know, we talked about it. I know you were the one to present the opportunity, but I just felt this organization was better for me. Anything like that. I mean, I would have still been mad, but I wouldn't have felt that it was a stab in the back or disloyal. So he is off my list. I'll be cleaning house. And the funny thing is, it's not just that he did that. He has benefited from our relationship because of he's introduced me to people with whom I've made money, and I've always told him, what I make with them, I'll give you 25%. How do you F up that relationship? See, broke MF mentality right there, because he was about to get paid. He ain't gonna get paid now. No. So anyway, there's that. Did Shalana go away?
Yeah,
She
dropped
said
out.
she had to go.
You're
Okay.
I love you. Oh my God.
You think I'm a nut, huh? Okay.
Yeah.
But so yeah, I feel like you have to make your own choices as to who you have in your world, and it's up to you to decide. And I think 𝗲𝗶 is still on, but you know, marriage, friends, business partners, even sometimes family. I got to tell you, sometimes just because they're blood related to you doesn't mean you need to keep them around in your life. Like you have this circle, the inner circle, and they're like out here somewhere. You don't really see them that much. And I'm going to share something that happened with me. I lost my mother in 1996. That was a devastating emotional event for me. And then I married my husband. We had a baby girl. So my father's brother, my uncle, is one of those you just don't want in your life. I don't talk to him. The last time I talked to him was when I was pregnant with my son, who is now 18, going on 20 in August. So a long time ago. This guy who was useless when I was going through the losing of my mother, he's not a good person. He called me collect while I was pregnant with my son to ask me for money. He called collect, I thought it was some emergency. And then when he asked me for money, I started thinking, well, how did you get my phone number? And he's like, well, George gave it to me. He's got this real Southern accent. George is my father, by the way. And I was like, well, I'm not giving you any more money or any money, and don't call me again because you're useless to me. And so I hung up the phone. And then I called my father and I was like, why did you give Julius my phone number? And he was like, well, he was hoping you could help him with his daughter's tuition, college tuition, or something like that. Now, let me give you the story about this daughter. This daughter ain't by no wife of his. This is another woman who had his child. And I was like, well, which daughter is this? This woman named her daughter Julietta. That's my name. My name comes from two grandmothers, one on my mother's side and one on my father's side. How is she going to appropriate the name Julietta for her child? She don't know my mama. That's how I talked to her like that too. I was like, you don't know my family. I don't know you. You're nobody to me. Why'd you take my name? Well, that was the daughter. And I met that child when I was 16. So my filter was a lot less working than it is now. And it's not the best now, but you know, whatever. And I remember thinking, she named her child after me? I'm not pleased. Anyway, that's the daughter that he wanted. He thought I would want to give money to the other Julietta. He now knows I wouldn't. And I remember he got off the phone and he was like, but we're family. Family's supposed to help family. I was like, well, how have you helped me? If family is supposed to help family, what have you done for me? Oh, well, I haven't talked to him since I was pregnant with my son. That was in 2002. It is 20 years later. I don't intend to talk to him on this side of the dirt. You got to be willing to let people fly, in Julie's opinion. Now, there are some people who don't believe that, and that's fine, but I do, 100%. And I don't know if you all have family that's not in your lifeboat helping you row, but in fact are punching holes in your boat and causing you to sink. It's your choice. It's your decision. What is your long-term goal? Do you want to get there? Are you going to let something called blood relationship stop you from accomplishing your goals? And I'm going to touch on one more thing that might be somewhat controversial, but it's how I feel. I speak to a lot of Christians who say, I'm going to give it to God and He's going to handle it, which I believe God will. But He's expecting you to do something. He's expecting you to work hard. He's expecting you to make the right choices. You don't just get it because you prayed. You get it because you prayed and you worked and you followed what you were supposed to do and you were the person you were supposed to be. I have had people, one just earlier this week on Monday, basically tell me I just need to trust in the Lord and that's all. I don't have to do anything. That is not in line with what I think I should do. I think I should take direction. I think everybody needs a relationship with their own personal Lord and Savior. You need to learn how to listen to what He's telling you to do. But doing nothing, I don't think anybody's God is telling them to sit and do nothing.
Faith without works is dead. I believe that's probably true in every religion.
Yep. So if you have a problem with my thoughts about that, then we probably are not congruent in our values, because I believe in working hard. So anyway, it's 7:18. Hey, Wilda. I'm so glad to see you. Hi.
I'm doing my drive. I'm almost there. I've enjoyed the content though. I really have. And I agree with most everything that's said. You do have to, I had a conversation with a friend and we were talking about how it would just be so nice if we could just build this community of like-minded people and we could all live and work and kind of build our own city. And she's like, yeah, it would never work, because just some people just won't make it. We're just going to have to leave some people behind. And that has resonated with me. It is true. There are some people that, that you can love to death, but they just ain't going to make it. And you've got to be willing. You got to be truthful with yourself. You got to be willing to leave them behind.
Yep.
especially if it's stopping you from doing what you need to do.
Especially if it's stopping you from doing what you need to do. If it's not stopping you, you have another decision to make whether or not you want to help somebody along.
Personally, yes, but yeah, no, nobody gets to do that for me.
No. Yeah. I heard the expression once a long time ago, love with a long-handled spoon. I love that. I love that. You ain't getting too close. And one of the things, David on here, David has known me a long time. And we have talked about, whoops. There we go. It disappeared from me. We have talked about a lot. We've argued once or twice because David's hard-headed and doesn't know how to. Sorry, I just had to put that there. But I just feel like you gotta have people around you that want you to grow, but are willing to give you the information you need to hear. And sometimes it's not all rosy and positive. And David is one of those people that has said to me, look, Julie, I'm gonna tell you, XYZ PDQ. I've said my words, and we have some words, not much, because I respect him. I respect him a lot, and I know he respects me. Those are people to have in your lifeboat right there. Those are people. If you've got somebody saying things like, you aren't going to make this happen, no one's ever done it before, what makes you think you can do it? If those kinds of things are being said by people around you, why are they around for you to hear them? Get them out of your inner circle, because that negative energy, even if you can say, you know, I don't believe you, I'm gonna, after a while it builds up and it pierces in. Don't let that in. Don't let that in. I mean, I have one of the things I think I'm good at, probably because I'm an only child, is looking at people and be like, I don't hear you. I don't hear you. You're gone. You don't even exist. Because I have ignored people who have lived in my dorm room like they don't exist. So I know I can ignore somebody that doesn't even live in my house. Get yourself some sunblock against toxic people's rays and keep applying it. Keep applying it. And I'm not saying you want only people that tell you that you're wonderful, but you should only be listening to people who already think you're wonderful and are giving you gifts to help you become more wonderful. So anyway, it's 7:22. We did not have the conversation I had planned to have. I'm going to get with Shalana and get her back on because I really want her to talk about how she transitioned from being a teacher to being a real estate agent, coach, mentor, author, what skills she leveraged. And I think a lot of what she's done follows the principles of Pitranomics. She may not have known that it's so, but I'm sure she does now. Anyway, I would love for her to share some of those things she's been doing. And she's an amazing woman. So I will be making the events for upcoming talks. We're going to have some fun people on. There'll be other times you listen to me because I really want to talk about the send your dollars, or if you're not in this country, whatever your currency is, out into the world and have it bring back friends. That's what investing is. Accumulating some money and putting it out there and having it come back to join you with more dollars or francs, pounds, euros, whatever it is. Okay, any questions for me before we log off? This has been fun. Thank you for the interaction.
Well,
This has been fun.
it was.
Any
Good
questions?
stuff.
Okay, so I'm going to put some links in Pitranomics. I hope you guys check it out. And I look forward to speaking to you next week. What did I say next week would be? Hold on, do I have that handy? It is not letting me bring up Okay, my technology does not like me. Let's see. Yes. So next week, I want to talk about more about the Lifeboat series and how it relates to parenting, friends, business partners, marriage, mentors, things like that. So more of this, but specific details, because I'm a firm believer your relationships are what help power your way to success. So thank you. I really appreciate it that you guys came out and spent time with me. And I will see you next week.
Thank you. You do a great job, and you always give good information. So I appreciate it.
Oh, I appreciate you for coming. Oh, and if you ever want to have someone else join, let me know. Okay.
I'll see how they're doing. I had to check them out first. No, I'm just kidding. They ain't gonna be taking up our space. You're gonna be getting on our boat.
Don't get in my boat unless you're willing to get a paddle.
You know, we working over here. Okay.
Exactly. And also be willing to paddle in somebody else's boat.
Absolutely.
So be the paddler and then be the main paddler. Whatever. You know what I'm trying to say. Anyway, Good night, everybody. Mwah.